Hello, everyone, and welcome back to Franchise Sports Talk Baseball with me and Sam.
Hello.
Hello. There's been a few things that have actually happened, haven't there, since our last podcast, even though it wasn't that long ago.
Yeah, quite a lot. Quite a lot.
Is that unexpectedly started going? The hot stove.
Yeah.
It started getting very hot very quickly, which is sort of surprising. Is the last 2 years, it's trended the other way completely, hasn't it? It's gone. Stuff hasn't really started happening until almost the new year. Quite a lot of it.
Yeah, there's also been the contracts handed out have been old school, as in not the last two off seasons type of contracts, I
Yeah,
think.
like longer contracts.
I'm sure we'll come on to that, but we mentioned it with Yasmani Grandal before, and with Mike Moustakas, definitely. I mean, I don't think he's a different player to the guy who just got 1 year deals. He's not someone else now. And Zach Wheeler, even. They're the
Yeah,
big ones that've gone so far, those three.
yeah. Well, we're going to come on to those in a bit, aren't we? We're going to start off with the non-tendered players because it was the deadline for that.
Yeah,
Like about a week
which
ago,
is,
I think, was it?
yeah, something like that. That was quite significant, really.
Yeah, because there's also some slightly surprising names on it. Well, yeah, that seems surprising, but I guess I feel like a lot of people maybe, if they're players for their own team, might understand it more.
Yeah, so it's interesting because when you saw the list, there was a lot of, as there always is in baseball Twitter landscape, there was a lot of, oh my God, teams just don't want to pay their players. And that's not really how I felt about almost any of them. There was a lot of, yeah, that you look at that and then you look at how they performed last year and how much they were projected to get in arbitration, and you think, oh yeah, they're not going to be worth that amount of
Yeah,
money. But I
it
didn't.
depends if you say they've got a finite pool of money, they're going to spend that money, yeah, anyway. They can spend it a lot more effectively and get a lot better value by spreading around and getting
Yeah,
someone else basically for the same amount.
the big one I saw some people talking about is basically that one win players just aren't getting paid any money anymore
Yeah,
because
I
teams now know that you can
yeah,
just make a one win player out
I
of
think that is
nothing.
the big thing that has changed in the last few years really, is that you were getting guys that were basically had never really been above average for their career. We're still getting, once they hit free agency, we're just getting the traditional big money multi-year deals,
Yeah, this is
uh,
complete nonsense,
which people
really.
realise now. There's a pretty good chance of just any random guy you bring up from the minor leagues performing at very close to that level.
Yeah, well, I've got the list up here on the LB website. Some of the guys who were cut, for want of a better word, and one of them being Kevin PR. I know all the other stuff about him being a great
Yeah,
clubhouse guy and stuff. He played almost every game last year and had 1.5 WAR.
yeah, yeah. I think he might have been. He was probably the most durable player for the Giants, wasn't he? He played the most
But he is
out of any
absolutely
Giants.
bang average, is basically the thing with
Yeah,
him now. In fact, as a
it's
hitter, he's slightly below average,
it's
and as a defender, he's
the
average.
thing is the people that wanted to keep him saying surprised that he'd been released as well. The stats that the people have been pointing to for him is like the home run RBI numbers,
They're
which
all
are,
counting stats, yeah.
yeah, it's just counting stats. It's he played every game
He led the team in
and
those categories because he was the only one who played that many games.
he
I
never got
mean,
on base. You know,
yeah.
he's
So
basically not a good hitter really.
his
He's
free
just
agency is going to be really interesting.
he also kept batting five, didn't he? Inexplicably, he was batting five and right in the middle of the order all the time. So
Yeah,
he was coming up in, well, we know because we've watched quite a lot of the Giants, coming up in RBI spots a lot. Um, and really, for the amount of chances he had, I don't think his RBI number was actually as high as it should have been, really.
yeah, but he's a really interesting test case, I think, for this. Is one, what sort of deal is he now going to get as a free agent? He's not going to get a 1 year, 10 million contract, I don't think, which is what he was projected to get. Um, And also, he basically doesn't have upside anymore. Is he's 31
No,
years old. As a defender, you think he's only getting worse. You
and
wouldn't want to commit
that's
to
what he
him.
was known as. I think
Yeah,
that's
and
part of the thing with him is
offensively, there's
this.
no upside at all
Yeah,
because he's been like a 90 sort of a 90 OPS plus hitter basically his career. That's who he is. That's fine. There's some value in that to some teams, but also if you throw in like a quadruple A guy who's got some upside, they might be better than that. You can at least find something out. You don't learn anything with Kevin PR, do you? You know what he is the thing
yeah.
with these guys.
And the problem is there's um, still a little bit of a myth of that he's like a great defender, but he's actually for centre fielders, isn't he like basically just average now?
Yeah,
And he
yeah,
has been
very,
for like 2 or 3 years, I think. He's
yeah,
quite a few years away from being actually like a plus as a defender, like better than any random guy basically you could pick up. He's just not anymore. He's nothing special defensively. Still makes like spectacular catches sometimes, but that's because of he's basically one of these guys that will always try. He always tries to go for the
the big
big
play.
play, doesn't he? Whether he's at the plate or in the field, which makes him look fun and exciting. But a lot of the time, it doesn't actually mean make you that good. You have a good highlight reel,
Yeah.
basically, but
Um,
over a whole season, it's not really what you need.
yeah, well, he was linked with the Mets, wasn't he? His people, or at
Yeah,
least were trying to talk that into existence. And then they've traded for Jake Marisnick, which is kind of one of these interesting points. Again, why these guys get cut is Marisnick is admittedly not quite as good a hitter as PR, but he's a better defender
yeah,
these days. And they had to give up like two almost irrelevant prospects,
yeah.
and he's cheaper.
The other thing as well with that is maybe he's not as good a hitter. Maybe is a thing, but um, I feel like a lot of the time when you have those guys that like centre fielders typically, you want them to be a good defender, and then very rarely are they going to be good enough to be one of your like big sluggers in your lineup. So they're going to be batting down the order anyway. You sort of, I feel like you just want them to not completely ruin it. You know, if there's,
Yeah.
you're in the middle of an inning, building an inning, you don't want him to just not completely mess it up, which Kevin PR, I feel like has like a little bit of a knack of doing. I've not really seen Marisnick, but maybe he doesn't hit home runs much, but if he can just like put a solid at bat together, and walk occasionally when they are like giving him a walk. I mean, I'd probably take that when for your like number 7 or 8 hitter.
Well, I think it's also just a decent addition for the Mets. It kind of makes sense for them to just use up prospects that aren't going to change the world anyway. If it gets because they clearly have a budget. There's a few things going around at the moment about the Phillies are going to spend an endless amount of money, and the Yankees want to offer Cole a record deal and stuff. The Mets, they get criticised for it, I think, at times a bit too much. But the Mets clearly are not going to have a $300 million payroll. So if they can get a guy that's cheaper and roughly as good,
Yeah,
it
that
just
extra
makes
bit of
sense to me.
money can actually make a difference to
Yeah,
them.
that extra bit of money might be
Yeah,
a setup guy.
yeah.
Are there any other? I swear when I first saw this list, I thought it was more interesting than it
Well, I
seems.
think
I'm looking over it.
Trinan is an interesting one. Is that
Yeah,
I think well he obviously had a bad year last year, but he's also due to get about 10 million or something, isn't he? Around that. And
yeah,
the Athletics, I think, are probably well. If he was as good as he was the year before, they'd keep him because he'd be the best closer in baseball. But I think they're other than someone of that caliber that is like, you know, Cy Young contending good. Um, they're just never going to pay that much to a relief pitcher. I don't think
no,
when they
almost anyone.
yeah. But I think for like a bigger market team, I think someone will give him a go. Although
Oh,
I guess,
definitely.
are they gonna have do they have to pay his arbitration money though? I guess don't they? How does that work?
I think you can just agree a contract with them, can't you? They're just a normal free agent now.
But it's only like 1 year, I guess.
Can't you just buy? Can't you just agree a contract with them? Aren't they just unrestricted free agents effectively?
Oh yeah, maybe. Yeah. Probably should know that sort of thing, but yeah.
There was also CJ Cron, who was projected to get paid like $6 or $7 million, and he hits loads and loads of home runs. But also first base / DH types who hit loads of home runs.
Yeah, and he's not actually that good.
No,
on base percentage below 300, just hits home runs.
He just hits loads of bombs.
Like, if you can have him as your DH in the American League, you're not going to be very good, probably.
No, so he's kind of just a player that like you have around, isn't he? And you don't. Most markets aren't going to pay someone like that $6 million.
Yeah, for most teams, really, if you're actually trying to be good, he's like a useful bat to have on the bench, but then also doesn't have any flexibility, like for playing a different position. So it's sort of
it's sort of not that useful.
He's like a pinch hitter. You'd have him as your primary pinch hitter maybe on the bench, but you're not going to pay someone like that $7 million.
Basically any money at all. It's kind of a shame for those guys, but particularly with how important versatility is now, they're not really worth almost anything above minimum.
Yeah. Well, another one actually that you mentioned to me before was Domingo Santana.
Yeah.
Because he goes into what I think is quite a crowded corner outfield market. Well, actually, Steven Souza actually has also been non-tendered, so you can add to that. But he's actually had pretty bad injury problems, hasn't he?
Yeah.
So he's like probably more a spring training invitation candidate, really, Steven Souza. But Domingo Santana, like, seems to be like one of the big like sought after hitters on the market, but then always seems to get just like released, or people just
well, it's because he ends up, I think it's that he's so bad defensively, because his WAR ends up being really low.
Not that good a hitter. I mean, well, he's a very good hitter, but he's not so good that it completely makes up for being a terrible defender.
Also, I think last year there's probably some concern about his second half of the season. 90 games in the first half, 850 OPS. 31 games in the second half, 468 OPS.
Oh dear.
That's not it. That's definitely not it.
But look at this stat though. You go right off the LB website. He barreled roughly the same percentage of his batted balls as Marcell Ozuna, Freddie Freeman, and Juan Soto.
Yeah, that's pretty good, isn't it? They were all in the first half of the season as well.
He can hit the ball well and hard, which is quite good if you're trying to be a hitter.
Yeah,
really. But
he's definitely a player to watch out here.
Because especially as he's been non-tendered, he's sort of he maybe will end up being more of a budget option than some of the other guys. Because as we discussed in the last episode, there's like Ozuna, Castellanos,
Cole Calhoun, Garcia, Puig.
Yeah, all those guys. I think he just slots right into that group really as like, I don't know, he's sort of a similar level to a lot of those guys, I think, really. I mean, well, Ozuna should be above that level, but I don't think he is at the moment.
Well, particularly not when he's sort of weighed down by the qualifying offer, so he's really hard to judge.
But it's like, if you want a corner outfielder, and a lot of teams will try and upgrade a corner outfield because that's like an easy spot to upgrade your lineup, really, isn't it? But you can get someone like Santana if you want to, sacrifice a little bit of defense, get someone like cheap like that. But that's where the key decision making, I think, is for front offices, is which one of those guys do you go for?
Yeah, I think it's going to be for a lot of teams because, like you said, that's an easy upgrade. Particularly because if you've got one good corner guy and you've got one you don't like as much, you just pick up any of these guys and figure it out.
Yeah.
How much value do you get out of this? Do you pay Ozuna too much money and lose a draft pick, and then he's actually a worse hitter than like Puig, and then it's like, oh my god, you've screwed it? Yeah,
I know exactly.
It's really a massive decision. You're right. I mean, without getting too far ahead of it, is the sort of thing that could define how this free agency goes, is who gets the best deal out of those guys, because they are going to be